Virtual reality. What for many years has been hyped as the next big leap in gaming technology arrived with some issues. The basic performance requirements for VR are leaps and bounds over what you will need for regular gaming, and the technology is expensive. I have done some simple experimentation in the past trying to get closer to budget-friendly VR, but after watching Super Bunny Hop's amazing video on the PlayStation VR, I was convinced that I needed to find a way to experience full-room VR with the controllers while still keeping within my limited budget. I set out on this adventure months ago, and the result is pretty amazing. Let's jump right into it. Part 1. The headset. The first problem that I needed to solve was the absolute steep cost of full virtual reality headsets and controllers. A regular non-pro HTC Vive is about $500, and Oculus Rift with the controllers is $400. The PlayStation VR starter kit is like $360. Considering all of those could eat up my whole PC budget, I needed another solution. And then I saw that some people on the official Discord were talking about Windows Mixed Reality. Windows Mixed Reality is an unfortunate name for a set of virtual reality headsets done under a Microsoft standard that do not do mixed reality. One has to wonder exactly what happened in the board meeting where the name for this thing was decided. Instead of relying on external sensors or an external camera like the other devices, it uses a couple of depth cameras in the actual headset coupled with other sensors to track the position of your head and the position of the included controllers. The obvious disadvantage is that the controllers are only tracked as long as they are in your line of sight, something I barely notice it, as 90% of game actions happen within your view, and the main advantage is that it requires minimal setup and can easily be carried around since you do not need to set up a bunch of sensors every time you want to play. When these originally released, they were slightly cheaper than an Oculus Rift, but since then the price has dropped so much that if you live in the right country, you can snatch one of these with the controllers for $250. Now here was a problem. Apparently, this was never sold officially in Spain, and the best I could find were resellers with prices that edged it too close to the territory of an Oculus Rift. So given that I had to travel to the US to attend a certain video creators conference, I used the opportunity to buy one of these. I managed to find a refurbished Windows Mixed Reality headset for $160. That is less than half the price of a PlayStation VR. Since I was eager to try it, I decided to make a short improvised experiment. During that trip, I carried with me this MSI laptop that I used for the video in the corner. This is one of the cheaper models of gaming laptops, sporting 8 gigs of RAM, a pretty good i7 and a GTX 1050 Ti. Under normal gaming circumstances, this is nowhere in the vicinity of a low-end or entry-level PC. In fact, I think this is an amazing gaming laptop. But I was a little nervous because of the GPU. You see, virtual reality grabs all your current conceptions of performance and throws them out of the window. In virtual reality, a GPU must render the same image twice and maintain a stable level of performance for a long period of time. In a regular game, dropping under 30 FPS might be something that you can brush off and work with, but in VR, low performance can give you the worst motion sickness you have ever experienced. I say this from personal experience. If you look up a list of VR compatible GPUs, the list stops on the GTX 1060 for this generation. So imagine my surprise when I plug in the headset and run some of the games that I had downloaded, and they just work without any adjustments, just like that. Now, since I was surrounded by some interesting friends, I decided to have them try out this thing and see if this headset or GPU will run into any issues on a long and intensive play session.
Like everyone's recording this stuff. This is way more popular than I expected. Good thumbnail material. He looks like Robocop. Come on. Like this is the modern YouTube Robocop. Careful, you're really close to a thing.
Why do I have a post-it note?
No, hit him with it. Hit him.
Die. A post-it note.
Super long hair is so appropriate for the electric.
Yep.
Oh, yo, these boys have got balloons. Whoa.
very few people ran into issues because the controllers were not tracked outside the field of view, and only one person ever noticed any performance issues. Excellent. So given this encouraging results, I wondered, what is the most modest PC I could get away with for using this thing? And that leads to part 2, the PC. For the base components, I use an almost full PC that I got for less than 25 euros. It includes a case, a motherboard with USB 3.0, which this headset needs, an Intel Pentium with a surprisingly good cooler, and a 500-watt cheap power supply that is likely going to fail someday. I switched the CPU for this old Sandy Bridge i5 2500K that a viewer donated, and 8 gigs of single-stick RAM, also among viewer donations. Finally, the cheapest SSD I could find in Amazon, and a cheap Bluetooth dongle to connect the controllers. Altogether, this is a humble PC that a lot of people will not consider like gaming ready for a lot of modern games, let alone VR ready. For the GPU, I'm going to try several things. Since the GTX 1050 Ti has already proven capable, I'm going to try this with the GT 1030. Yep, you heard that right. The most modest GPU of Nvidia's 10 series. A lot of people will not consider this GPU a fit for playing recently released games, let alone VR. But we're going to try it anyway with the help of a couple of tricks. The first is getting into settings for mixed reality in Windows and making sure we are in the settings for maximum performance. The second is on SteamVR. After configuring and launching the application, you can actually get into the settings and change the resolution that every game is rendered on the headset. For example, the one game that I was most excited for is Superhot VR. With a resolution of 50%, it managed to do something between 40 and 60 FPS, 30 on the lowest, and to my immense surprise, it works really great in motion. But I had greater ambitions. Let's try Skyrim Br. To get acceptable performance on this one, just dropping the resolution to 60% will not be enough. Thankfully, this game is just basically Skyrim Special Edition running on VR, and that means that it has the exact same configuration files as my Skyrim Special Edition video. With those changes, you remove a lot of the grass, most of the shadows, and reduce the draw distance of most objects to a critical minimum.
Well, that was a huge success.
Let's step it up and change the GPU to the next one in the series, the GTX 1050 with 2 gigs of VRAM. With the extra power, this GPU can easily pull more than 60 FPS on Skyrim Br using the graphic tweaks and at full resolution. So while we're still outside the supposedly compatible list of components, you can still get a pretty full VR experience. For now. Let's try Fallout 4 VR, which is significantly heavier than Skyrim. Since both games use the same engine, I'm also able to reuse most of the adjustments from my video on Fallout 4. Still, it is going to need a bit of help, so it is worth turning the resolution all the way down.
This is Fallout 4 at a really low resolution. I have gone from gaming in an extremely low resolution to inhabiting an extremely low resolution world, and this is pretty impressive.
So before closing up, there is one more game that I wanted to try, Doom BFR. Two problems arise from this. First, the game seems to crash on 2 gigs of VRAM, so the GTX 1050 is no longer a valid option, which is why I jump one more level to the GTX 1050 Ti and thus ending in the level of the laptop that this all started with, just with a weaker CPU. And this final form of this PC, on 50% resolution, can keep this game going over 60 FPS without many issues. Who needs a 1060 anyway? So that is all for this ambitious experiment. If you want to get into VR but are not willing to spend thousands of dollars on headsets and PC components, consider what you might have learned on this video. You might be able to get started with some cheaper options and some patience. Technologies like deft cameras and headsets that can actively track hand controllers all working on a budget GPU is some of the best example of the amazing technological applications of math and geometry. As technology evolves, understanding the science that makes our gadgets work is going to be more and more important. And I'm not talking about memorizing a bunch of formulas and rules, I'm talking about actually understanding the logic behind these amazing tools. For that, you have services like Brilliant that teach you math, geometry, computer algorithms, and computer science using problem solving and logic, so you can actually learn rather than memorize. There are a ton of free courses already, but if you want to support LowSpecGamer, you can go to brilliant.org/LowSpecGamer and sign up for free. And also, the first 200 people that go on that link will get 20% off their annual premium subscription. Thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Seriously, I had to go way over my normal budget to buy the headset and all the games. And thank you if you're a sponsor in Patreon.